All right, so this week I'm actually really lucky to have a wonderful astrologer that I've only just met called Stephanie Gailing, who I believe is from the States. I am in computer hell right now, and Stephanie is going to help me, which is actually really good because she actually helps a lot of astrologers apparently. Let me just tell you what I can find about Stephanie. So, Stephanie is an astrologer, but also a wellness consultant, which is good because she's helping me with my wellness right now because I'm not well in my computer hell. And it says, Stephanie, you weave together stellar insights, flower essences, dream work and coaching, as well as family constellations. So, welcome to the show, Stephanie.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here and thrilled to be of service as well.
Oh, thank you. So, where are you actually? Sorry not to know, but guys, my computer, I'm in computer hell, just except I know nothing about anything right now. Stephanie and I have discussed this, and she's going to lead the way on the podcast to tell us what's happening this week and why I'm in computer hell, or if I'll be out of it by the time this comes out.
Yes, I'm actually in Puglia, Italy right now. I'm based in the States, in the United States, but I happen to be in southern Italy right now.
And what are you doing in southern Italy, may I ask?
Yes, you may. I am just traveling and exploring, and I'm working on a book and also, just doing my work here from this beautiful, beautiful place.
And how's your computer working?
My computer happens to be working well, and I am very sorry that yours is not.
Because I'm in France, not too far away from you, and it's beautiful apart from my computer. Anyway, okay, so I'm going to ask first, before anything else, a very self-serving question, but also for anyone else out there who's distressed at the moment. It says here you work with flower essences. Now, in France, they're quite big on bark flower remedies. I don't know if you know that.
Yes.
Do you have any recommendations for flower remedies? Do I just need rescue remedies? That's just like the basic bottom line here.
I mean, I definitely think rescue remedy is always a really good place to start, right? Because it really helps us in terms of like grounding in, and it's that multifactorial approach to like reducing our stress, including all, so that is definitely one approach to take. I think it would also be like, what's stirring in you? Is it that like I can't get anything done? Is it a fact like I can't keep, my mind is racing, during this whole process? I can't sort of keep, that merry-go-round quiet. And if that's the case, I would say white chestnut is amazing for that. If it's like,
I think for me, it's
a fear and it's frustration. It's like a frustration that like I can't get anything done.
I got like my laptop went missing. Then I'm in France where the keyboards are different. Took me a while to realize that didn't really matter. Bought a replacement laptop, which kept turning itself on and off. Went back to the shop, said this keeps turning itself on and off. The guy was particularly unhelpful and unpleasant. But I did come away with another computer that, in all fairness, they did say it's going to be a bit slow. And now I can't download SolarFire. So I'm just in like, Please. Just for anyone else who's listening, it's not just about me. If you're going through this as well, Stephanie's advice is for you too.
Yeah, I mean, I think just like in this exceptionally chaotic time, right? I mean, there's just this incredible amount of collective chaos. Like what was up is down, what was down is up, like how we're all navigating not only change, but change that feels like it's happening at a rapid pace. How do we maintain our through line? How do we maintain our sense of center so that we are not thrown this way and that way with these changes, some of which we don't necessarily have control of, which I would also say doesn't mean like we should all be steeled and it is all okay. It's not okay. I mean, I do think a sign of resilience is also realizing like, this is not right. This is not okay in terms of these larger patterns, right? And these larger movements, but yet how do you find that center core, right? So we could look to flower essences and taking like the rescue remedy. We could look to like, taking our socks off and going in the ground and like really rooting into earth. Here we are at like the end of like Uranus and Taurus, like really that reverence for the earth and its grounding and its connection for us. But I think it behooves all of us to do what we can to find that sort of that moving stability right? That sense of bounciness so that we can feel grounded as we're adapting to all of these unexpecteds, all of these, I didn't have that on my bingo card. Like you didn't have on your bingo card, right? Like this issue with your computer. And here it is. And it's not like, okay, great, yay. It's more like, okay, no, this is not great. And how can I find a sense of calm so that I can, as much as possible, navigate, right? What I need to navigate.
Yeah, beautiful. So, Stephanie, just explain to people why it's so chaotic right now. We talked briefly before we came on here about the massive planetary changes taking place. So, just give people an idea of what we are contending with right now and if they are
Oh my
going
God.
through chaos.
Oh my God, contending is such a great word. Okay, so on sort of a macro level, we have what in the last handful of months and coming up, not one, not two, not three, not four. Am I losing count? Planets that are or have been at the end of one sign and about to dance into another sign and then like dance back to the original until they're finally firmly set. And so there's this sense of movement, right? There's this sense, we have Pluto that finally made its way into Aquarius. We have Neptune that just left Pisces into Aries. In May, we'll have Saturn doing the same. In July, we'll have Uranus moving from Taurus into Gemini and Jupiter moving into Cancer. I think that's the end of June. So there's so much shifts. And it's not just like, okay, we're all moving and let's move into this new sign. It's like, then we back up, then we go forward again. So this sense of being nimble, I think, is really important. I also think what's really important is we're dealing with both the endings, right, of these planetary movements that they've been in these signs and these beginnings, right? So how do we be also in that space of endings and assimilation, and release and then open up to something new? So it's like the moment it feels like you're like, oh yeah, here's the landscape, like here's what's in front of me. It's like, no, that's about to change.
100%. That's the thing as well, isn't it? Here's the new landscape. Oh, no, wait a minute, because of the
Right?
retrogrades. Oh, I'm back again. And we had
Exactly.
and we had Mercury retrograde, and we had Venus retrograde. That's the micro.
No, exactly. On that micro, like, from February till now, it's just been like, right, to your point, right? It's the eclipses. Everything was really foggy. Things are shifting, but where's the shore? Like, what is this about? And then those retrogrades. And I think that those retrogrades of Mercury and Venus were especially, let alone the Mars, but, were especially interesting too, because they do cover those points of what Saturn and Neptune are doing. So they're almost like that sense of that precursor of what the next years bring. But it's that like, okay, let's move forward. We can't move forward. It's not clear. It's not even about moving forward. It was about reviewing, right? Recollecting, reminiscing, and having a different vantage point for understanding. And now there's more of that moving forward movement, but it's like, into what?
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, so how much do you think that the fact that Saturn's about to change signs is impacting us as well? Because to me, I mean, I know Pluto was big and I know Uranus is big, changing signs, but I feel like the whole Saturn thing is a big thing as well. What do you reckon? Is that influencing us already here in, end of or middle of April?
I think that it is really important for a couple of reasons in and of itself, right? And also because, it's joining Neptune and it's literally going to be joining Neptune. But here we are at the end. I think it's May. I can't remember the exact date, but I love exact dates. So let's get ourselves an exact date of Saturn entering the 24th, around the 24th of May. But so, that's a little, not even that much further ahead, but, we're not there just yet. But where are we? We are at the end. We are at the end point of Saturn and Pisces. And I feel like that's what's also impacting us, right? Like here we are after we've traveled for the last handful of years, trying to give form to the formless, right? Like really needing to be diligent around, understanding where boundaries are eminent and important and where we may be too structured, right? And that creates our limitation. So I think also at the, Saturn at the end of Pisces, collectively, we're also really looking at, you know, where may I also take on what's not mine? What is mine? Right. And this sense also too of, realizing that there are other inspirations at play, right? Beyond what we can see, feel, hear, and know, a different sense of perception and knowingness. But I do think and I think it's beautiful, that sense of integration, especially with Neptune was at the end of Pisces as well, the integration of like, wow, I can know and feel much bigger than what's right in front of me. But it is work to realize like, is this true? Or am I just being like influenced by, sort of something that like someone or something wants me to absorb?
Yeah. So, as a wellness counselor, how do you suggest people, best navigate this? We mentioned flower remedies, and there's always, journaling and meditation. I mean, I find when I'm in this state, it's hard for me to meditate. It's
Yes.
probably better for me to go for a walk around the lake in a way because, there's just so much coming in and going out and changing and I'm sure lots of people feel this right now. So and also just sorry, one more thing, just to your point about being the end of the Saturn cycle as opposed to the beginning of the next one. Do you feel like, for one thing, I don't know if you know that expression, chickens coming home to roost? And it's
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
like you've made your bed and now you're lying in it. Like, for me, there's an element of that at the end of a Saturn cycle. It's like,
Yeah.
what karma have you created for yourself? So how are we supposed to navigate all this? I mean, this podcast reaches quite a few thousands of people. Like, anybody who's going through this difficult time, what can they do that's going to really help them? I mean, you've suggested walking barefoot, and that's actually a great one because it is grounding. I've talked about nature walks, there's journaling, but is there also, especially with Neptune active, is there an element of just surrender and just saying, I can be in a state of I don't know what the heck's going on?
I think that, so several things. One is, I think that that is important, right? I think it's just that sense of, let go, let goddess, right? That sense of like, there are only so many things that I can control. And if I'm feeling stirred, I don't have to try to escape it, right? That would be very like Pisces. Like, I don't have to escape it. I can just be with it. And how can I be with that? I also think in that context, or in this context we're living through, with Pluto in Aquarius, a big part of our, the power we can tap into for transforming and healing is being in community, right? Is not being isolated. So in that way, I feel like, from a self-care perspective, from a mutual aid perspective, from an other care perspective, like that's the power. It's like that's one of the strong elixirs I really feel. So I think that that's really important. I also think too, I mean, to your point of right now, it doesn't feel like I can sit still on my mat and, and meditate. I also really wonder too, especially as, Neptune's in a fire sign. Saturn will be in a fire sign. Uranus will be in an air sign. Pluto is an air sign. Maybe it's not necessarily just about like sitting still, right? It's about being mindful in movement, right? So you can't necessarily, so who's to say, right? Like meditation isn't just like we're sitting there. We could be walking by the lake, right? And just that being in that movement and trying to like be in that sense of presence itself feels like it connects us, it centers us, and it moves that energy because there is just a lot of energy swirling through. So that's just, I mean, there's a lot more to say, but I would sort of just sort of offer those as places to start.
Amazing, amazing. Okay. So let us then return to the micro of the coming week that people are dealing with. All I really know without Solarfy, without the best astrology software in the world, which I can't seem to download to my computer right now, is that we're in the waning cycle of the moon. What else can you tell us about this week, Stephanie? And how do is it going to help us in all of this, or is it going to just send more waves to jump against?
This week is really, I mean, that word interesting is so, but it's very interesting with a lot of depth. because there's two things that are happening that feel like they bring some closure, assimilation to things that have been inspired for months now. What are those? On April 24th, we have the Venus Saturn conjunction. And for anyone that feels like that sounds familiar, it's because of the retrograde of Venus, it happened 2 times before, around January 18th and April 7th. So Venus and Saturn together, Saturn says to Venus, okay, be responsible. Really look at the bottom line of what do you value and what has values. Do your relationship have foundation, and is the way that you're actually approaching relationships, right, have a solidity? Right. And so you said before, what is the phrase, like chickens coming home to roost? With the third one, it feels like, we may get some really strong insights into, okay, let me really account for what is essential when it comes to what I believe is enriching, what I believe has value. And to me, at the bottom line of the Venus Saturn is the holding and upholding and revering the value that I am, the value that we each are. So again, Saturn doesn't give you a wide berth, right? It really asks you to really pay attention to, make sure you are dotting those I's and you are crossing those T's. And if you see things that feel frustrating or limiting or restricting, it's also really to look at, okay, maybe where didn't I take this seriously? Or where did I not do the work? And, be gentle with yourself if you see that and be like, okay, that's there. That's what I'm going to take forward. So that is really interesting to me that is both happening and also happening again, but the third of them. And then there's something else that also concludes. But before I share that, thoughts, reflections on that? What do you think
Well, I'm
about the
actually
Venus
just
Saturn?
thinking that one thing I do know about the astrology this week, even without solar fire, because I talked about it for the podcast that's current while we're recording this in advance, is Saturn meeting the nodes. So in a way, that's almost like a precursor. I'm just thinking as I'm listening about Venus approaching Saturn, it's almost like there's that really big, and karma again, like it's not just because I'm just been to India that I'm all about karma. I mean, Saturn's about karma, the nodes are karmic. So we've got this kind of karmic energy that we've had. By the time this is listened to, it will be last week, and now Venus moving on to Saturn as well. It's like, yeah, it's sort of, I don't know, is it payback time?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely can be. And, for those who are operating in a humanitarianly aligned way, we hope, for the sake of all of us. But it has been interesting over the last months, right? With Venus meeting Saturn 3 times and the nodes and Saturn meeting the nodes. Feels very much very karmic in the last handful of months. Again, it's almost that chickens come back to roost, but in the most karmic, highly soulful, spiritual kind of way. In a deeper way.
I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast already. I think I might have said it last week, but I'll just tell you. I was recently in India for a month, and I was talking to my teacher there, Sri Shakti Nirani Amma, and I asked about a particular situation, and I said to Amma, was that karma? And Amma, my teacher said, Yasmin, everything's karma. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like this is karma week. But before we spoke as well, before we hit record rather, you were also saying this is like a crazy week. So tell us about the craziness.
Yeah. So, I mean, the other big event, or among the other big events, I should say, that occurs just 2 days after that is the Mars-Pluto opposition. And again, people might be like, is this deja vu? Didn't I already hear about a Mars-Pluto opposition? But again, because Mars in its own retrograde that it had, this is the third of 3, right? The first was November 3rd. The second was January 3rd. And here we have April 26th, the third of them. This is intense, right? We have the god of war, the god of battles, in a standoff with the god of the underworld. And so when there are these triptychs, I always say to people, okay, what thinking through the lens of those archetypes, what was stirring for you the first time? The second time, what did you see again, but maybe from a different vantage point? And now you're coming to the chickens coming home to roost one, right? In terms of like, let's find a sense of like, what did you learn? What did you move through? What culminated that you can then embody? And Mars, so we can look at it from two lenses, right? Mars, Pluto is also like, Pluto's with the god of the underworld. It's about like what we don't see, what we're subconsciously triggered by, right? So it can be very explosive and volcanic, and people just like being very triggered and very provoked, right? So that unleashing or that eruption of anger and or ire and or rage, which, I'm not saying that's bad. I mean, there can be obviously healthy rage and healthy ire where there needs to be. So I would just say with that, like, just watch your surroundings, right? Like, if people are, you're walking through the world and people are not as conscious as you, like they may not be aware of like their hidden motivations and what's provoking them. On a healing level, I would say, Mars Pluto is go deep, go down. What is really of significance and importance to you? What can you bring to light from the shadows? Use that Mars energy to like really go there, pull things up by the roots, right? What do they say? Light is one of the best disinfectants or uncontaminators. Like bring that up, see that, even to dealing with like, what am I really scared of? Or, what's the worst that can happen? I love that question, that inquiry for like a Pluto time. What's the worst that can happen? And you name it. And sure, some of that is like, oh yeah, that's actually pretty bad. But like a handful of, a variety of percent of that is like, it's not so bad, right? I think it behooves us to bring things up to our consciousness and then to really see like, okay, what is it that is so significant to me that I want to put my force behind,
Yeah.
and how do I work with that? But so that's like the not therapeutic, like that's the way to work it. But also to go back to the first point, like it can feel like jarring and explosive and a little bit unsettling when things feel like they're just being really stirred about, to put it lightly.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing I think of as well with the Mars Pluto is buried rage, that's going to
Yeah.
finally erupt out if you're not careful. And, like we do talk a lot about, it's okay to be angry, but it's also about, not toxic anger. It has to try and be healthy anger this week. So if you start to feel yourself being overwhelmed this week, then maybe think about, how am I expressing this anger? Am I releasing it? Because keeping it in is actually worse than letting it out, but you don't want to let it out in a way that you regret. Let's put it like that.
Completely. I completely agree with that. And I think that it's interesting too, because with Neptune in Aries and Saturn in Aries, I feel like we're all given this, opportunity, right, to be more present to anger, right? Anger in terms of it's like unconsciously expressed and the consequences of that, but our human right to like own our anger and to work with our anger and to be with our anger. There's actually a really interesting book. I haven't finished it, so I can't really speak to all of it, but it's called Love and Rage by Lama Rod Owens, who actually speaks about how to be in right relationship and healthy relationship with rage and anger. And I think, again, this is part of our lessons moving forward with these planets moving into Aries. So maybe this week will give us some, be very positive here, like some jewels of that, right? Some jewels of insight of that.
What's the name of the book again, Stephanie?
It is called Love and Rage, and I'm going to get the subtitle. Love and Rage, The Path of Liberation Through Anger by Lama Rod Owens.
Okay, brilliant. I will put a link to that. Okay, yeah. And the other thing that I'm feeling, listening to you and your thoughts on all this and contemplating, and I'm really enjoying this conversation, by the way. Thank you so much. I feel as well that it's time to clean up any mess, like,
Love that.
yeah, it just feels like that in a way. It's like we just have to step up and, face the mess that we've created, any mess, and just clean it up because we are going to be starting a new thing and a new cycle. And, you know, yeah, it just has to be done. It's like we've got to stick it in the rubbish bin, take it to the tip, and that's it. And that works with the fact that we're in the waning cycle as well. So it's probably that whole just clean up the mess and let's get ready to move on.
Yes. And like braiding that with something you said earlier and that we've been talking about, it's like clean up the mess sort of that's on the surface, but also like that bigger, maybe those bigger things related to like, karma, right?
Yeah.
Like this opportunity. And it's interesting because just also this week, that we're speaking about, there is also the Sun Pluto square, right, on the 23rd. So it's really like a lot of these same like take out the trash, like look at your trash, sort it, you know what I mean? Like sort the trash, sort the recycling, sort the
Yeah.
compostables, and then like take it out to the street or take it out to wherever. And, I think that we need to start there. I think the next piece of that too, I mean, that also helps us be in a healthy relationship with ourselves. And again, from that Pluto and Aquarius perspective, like healthy relationship to stand with others. That is going to be and
Yeah.
is so important.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think there's a little bit of take the medicine?
Yeah. I mean, take the medicine in terms of just like
Just
take responsibility, do it.
yeah. And you know what you've got to do.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what you got to do. And like, you know, we just need to step up. And
Yeah.
in the stepping up is also the fact of like, oh, wait, it actually feels good to step up. And like,
Yeah.
I can do this. And maybe it's interesting you say that because that has me go back to the end of Saturn in Pisces, where we can take responsibility so that we can also release some of our victimhood. Like that, I
Yeah.
can't, no,
Oh,
not
I love that.
me, no, but you should. But it's like, no, you know what? Like, I am strong. Like, I'm not a victim. Like, I have this agency and I'm going to take responsibility. And that's
Yeah.
very healing, right?
Yeah. I mean, it just shows what an interesting, you use that word, but what an interesting time we are moving through and we actually have coming up. It's going to be so interesting to talk about it. I would love, if you will come back, I would love to have you come back and let's continue this conversation when Saturn changes signs and conjoins Neptune. What do you reckon? We'll have another go at that because I'd love to talk to you about that right now, but it's a little bit too much in advance
Yeah.
to discuss. So should we just make a pact that we'll have you back to talk about that as well?
Act has been made. I would love that.
Okay. And I'm writing that down too. Okay, so I just have a couple more questions. Number one, you said you're writing a book. What's it about?
Well, this book is actually a memoir, which is my first, I would say stab, that's a very Aries word, my first try at narrative fiction or nonfiction like that. The other books that I've written have all been focused on astrology and self-care and dreams. So this one is a real long process, but it talked about like digging in and really looking at what's at the depths. So it's quite a journey, really quite a beautiful journey.
Okay. And how are you doing with it? Are you halfway through, just started, nearly done? Is that what you're doing in Italy?
That is part of what I'm doing in Italy. I am at the beginning of the writing, but about a year into the conception and thinking and the digging. So it's
Right.
going to be a very Saturn process. It's like a long horizon, but it's a continual present journey. But yeah, like being
Yeah.
away from where I live and just having these like I have a 12th house moon, so like having these sanctuaries for writing especially is really important to me. Really
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah. Amazing. And I know you have an event coming up on May 10. Is that an astrology university event?
It is. Oh, I
And
love
what's
them
it all
so
about?
much. Yeah, so it's akin to some of the things that we've been speaking about. It's called Self-Care Suggestions for the Fire and Air Era. And it's basically how to stay grounded and centered during these times. And so I'm going to dig more into, self-care strategies, whether dream work, nutrition, framework, altar suggestions. I work a lot with altars and family constellations, movement exercises, other things and also but giving context. It's not just like do this, take that, do that exercise. It's understanding the context and the why to help people really be present to themselves as they're present to these movements, staying grounded and centered, and therefore in open heart and in empowerment. So I'm thrilled to do this. I've done a variety of different lectures and workshops for astrology universities, always, weaving in astrology with self-care or dreams, which is part of, sort of the plating or the braiding that I love to do.
Amazing. So if people want to do that workshop, what should they Google? Stephanie Gailing, Stephanie spelt the usual way, Gailing, Gailing, self-care for fire and air. Will that Astrology University? Well, and I'll put a link as well.
Yeah. Or easier than that is go to astrologyuniversity.com and go to calendar, scroll down till you see it. It's on May 10th. And again, like all of their lectures and workshops, if the timing doesn't work for you, you don't have to be present to attend. You can, everybody who registers also gets the download and can stream and all the handouts. And I'm known for having very detailed handouts because I love that myself. So yeah.
I have to say, I loved all the dates you threw at us. Are they in your head or written down?
Combination of both, actually.
Very impressive. I love the way you threw all those retrograde dates at us as well. All right, well, Miss Stephanie, it's been an absolute pleasure. I feel better already. I can feel my
so happy
coming off my feet, and as soon as it stops raining, I'm going to go outside and work on the earth. So thank you so much. Let us know your website as well, because we've talked about astrology. What is your website?
Yes, so my website is my name. So it's Stephanie Gailing, Gailing. And like you said, Stephanie spelled with PH. So it's StephanieGailing.com.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you, Stephanie. Everybody, you know what to do. So just now have a great week and do it.